All right, welcome to Comfortably Uncomfortable. You've got Sandy and Alex here, and we are here to empower women to choose courage over comfort by getting comfortably uncomfortable. We get real and cut through the bullshit. Are you ready to get a little weird? Because we're going to laugh, sweat, cry, and grow together.
No topic is going to be TMI. Well, maybe for me, but not for Sandy. We complement each other in that way. Okay, so are we ready?
Well, yeah, duh, I am, but are you?
Okay, let's go. The one with the data. So, Sandy, I'm excited about this one today. I have to tell you.
I'm in the hot seat. I know.
Yep. We've been talking about this one for a little while because numbers, weight specifically, comes up a lot with clients. And Sandy had promised to track hers for an entire month.
I sure did.
To be honest, I think you were procrastinating a little bit on it, or it wasn't top of mind. So she finally did. And now we're recording after just about a month of her doing this. And I can't wait to hear more. So the first thing we're going to dig into when it comes to the data is, Sandy, tell us your why. Why did you decide to do this these past few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, this scale, the number is something that we've all grown up with. I mean, I think it's something whether your mom, your dad, your parents, at the end of the day, you go to the doctor, they ask you how much you weigh. And it's becoming a very hot topic as far as weight stigma. I worked in weight management at a pediatric hospital, BMI, all of these just numbers, tracking data. And I am a scientist. So like data is important. But it got me down this road of like, whoa, like we are attaching ourselves to data more in different ways that could be really impacting emotionally. And like for me, the weight on a scale is really personal. And so here, I'm getting a little comfortably uncomfortable with you guys and everyone. But like, I'll share, like, this scale has never served me. I, grew up as a gymnast. Sure, we could say it's that, or it's just my body type, or who knows, like my genetics, I don't know. But since I was a kid, I'd jump on the scale or somebody would ask me like how much I weighed, and they'd always get like really like shocked because I was heavier than they thought I was. I'm putting quotation marks, right?
Yeah.
Or that I look.
Should be or look.
Yes. And that. And so like, it was brought up. I remember the first time it was brought up to my mom in like the doctor's office. And my mom just kind of was like, excuse me? Because they didn't, like, the doctor clearly didn't know me. I had moved around a lot. So this was the first time they were seeing me for a pediatric visit. And they're like, yeah, she's overweight. Her BMI is overweight. She needs to lose weight. And my mom's like, this kid like freaking lives at the gym 20 hours a week. She eats great. Like, sure, I ate cheeseburgers. I was a kid, but like I loved broccoli. I loved veggies. Like that wasn't the issue. And like, I remember it impacting me to then like to get to high school, I like tried to lose weight. Like and not safely, right? And had to deal with that kind of shame on myself of like then feeling like, well, I can't lose the weight, and I've been about 150 pretty much since high school. Like I remember somebody saying, Sandy, you should wrestle on the wrestling team, because I was a gymnast that was flexible, doing all this thing that was strong. Okay. And they're like, well, how much do you weigh? And I was like, 150. And they were like, oh, well, we were thinking you'd be like in the 135 class or 130. And I was like, okay. And the thought of me trying to cut that weight, like it messed with my head.
Yeah.
So then growing up as a, adult, like I just put the scale away, and like that was my own journey. So I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but I did it for y'all.
It had been a while since you stepped on.
Yeah. And I just noticed with my clients, like that was the number, and I'd ask me like, hey, we're going to track. And they're like, oh, the scale. And I was like, we don't have to do the scale, but then like they'd want to do
Yeah.
the scale because the
Right.
scale was the
It's this
one that was
love-hate.
like the gold standard. Like that's the one
Yes.
that's going to tell me if it's working. And I'd be like,
Mhm.
or not. But
Right.
it just, I don't know, like with you, I know we've talked about it of like the scale was something that you've been attached to or
Oh,
that it helped,
absolutely.
you know, like literally I have clients who tell me they don't know how to feel about themselves until they weigh themselves that day. And that
Oh,
just
that's
makes me sad.
heavy. That is heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's so much more than that, which is
Oh
exactly
my
what we're gonna
gosh.
dig into. But
Exactly.
first, and before we get to my journey, I want to dig into yours a little bit more.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
See me, I try and
So
like, let's put you in the hot seat. I don't want to talk about mine.
no, no, no. I'm flipping it around. So, Sandy, day one. Okay, so I followed this journey on Instagram because you've been posting every day and you've really allowed yourself to be super vulnerable and
Mm-hmm.
given a lot of information
Mm-hmm.
to, I mean, help people relate to the struggle, right? And the
I hope
emotion
so.
that can be attached. So you open that scale, you got on day one. I want to know how you're feeling. And is that the same or different, like, than you're feeling today?
Oh man. Like, yeah. So first of all, buying a scale was overwhelming. Getting
Yeah.
on Amazon and looking at the amount of scales and all
Mhm.
the trinkets and whistles and bells and like I was like, oh my god, I can't even like when I would tell somebody to buy a scale, I just didn't even think about it like that. And
Right.
it was overwhelming. And I literally was like, what is the cheapest one?
Yeah.
That's just going to give me my weight. So
Right.
basically my, gravity times my mass because that's your weight. It's like um and I just went with something that had a cheap app. And so like I think it was under $20.
Yeah.
And because any of the ones that have the body fats that have anything else, it's just not very accurate.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not even going to spend money on that.
No.
So anyway, when I stepped on the scale and I saw 164.6, I took a deep breath and I was like, shit. Like shit is what I literally said to myself. And then I was like, oh, I just shit on myself,
Wait,
like
I just did
legit.
it. Yeah.
I just did that. And like I was trying to be just very
Yeah.
emotional. Like, yeah, like I've gained 10, probably 10 pounds is what I'm saying. Like 15 pounds if I go from high school being at 150, right?
Uh-huh.
And that hit me hard. And I
Yeah.
was like, I instantly got into this, well, I should lose weight. And like I just should on myself. And I'm
Yeah.
doing this. And I was just saying, like, I'm not gonna do that. And so it just
Right.
made it
And you have a
very
guilt for
human.
not
Oh,
being this like perfect coach for telling, you tell people all the time the number doesn't matter and then it just hits you like a ton of bricks.
it totally does. So I am human. We are human. And it made me realize the power of as much as we can be fully prepared. And I've worked
Mhm.
years at being like the scale number means nothing.
Mm.
And I step on the scale, and in that instant, it still had this like rush of feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, oh my gosh, I can only imagine us that are struggling with that already to then step on the scale.
Right.
Right. Cause like I have some
Mhm.
buffers. I've been doing this for a while. I've been coaching this. And so,
Right.
damn, it made me realize I'm human. And then
Right.
I took a deep breath and I was like, this is why I'm doing this, to show of like legit, I'm not on a
Mhm.
training program. I'm not on a quote unquote diet. Like I'm just living my life. And yes,
Right.
I'm ahead of the game in the fact that like I live what I preach and making meal prep easy and making food work for me and looking at my whole
Right.
day and my portions and this, like those are all things that like there are times I struggle more than others. But here in this past month, I was like, okay, school seems pretty manageable as it's going to be, work, pandemic, all that. Like this is legit just my real life. And so the first couple days were kind of hilarious because it was exactly what I thought was going to happen. I got my period. I'm bloated. My digestive system is, because again, I do know my poop.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like, and I'm just like, it's bringing acute awareness to this physiological thing that's
Yeah.
happening to me. Cause, like, within a day of me doing nothing but just being me, I lose a pound.
Yeah. Right.
And then
Yeah.
the next day, I think it was like 2 days after, here I'm looking at it, I go from 164.6 to 160. So literally in 2 days, within the first 2 days of my cycle, I
Uh-huh.
lost 4.6
My God,
pounds.
is that crazy? I mean,
And that's me. That's my
yeah,
body, right? Because like
yeah,
everyone's body is going to be different. And I loved because like right away, I got some other coaches texting me or sending me stuff, be like, yeah, me too. And then like I have a client that like hers was 10 pounds fluctuation. Mine's only
oh my
3. And I was
gosh,
like, oh my gosh. So like I knew I was onto something. I was like,
yeah,
okay, people have
yeah,
done this before, but usually they're on a weight loss journey or usually they're doing, they're athletes. So like hydration has a big thing. I was like, I'm literally being just an average mom of
hmm
like I'm managing all the things. I work out like so sporadically right now.
yeah.
So let's see what happens.
Well, and I think it's interesting because no matter kind of whether you are tracking it or whether you have a goal in mind, like the numbers are significant. The numbers mean something. You can take the good and the bad, the light and the dark from any data point, but
Yeah,
it's information, right? I think
it
more
is.
information is better than
Yes.
less,
Yes.
but
Exactly.
you have to know how to treat it properly.
Yeah.
So,
So the first,
are
I will
you
say
going
the
to continue with this, do you
I'm
think?
well, I mean, here's the thing. It's like, so those first 2 days, it like totally dropped. And then like I started noticing like it leveled out. So like I was like, oh, okay. So my weight doesn't really fluctuate in the middle part of my cycle. It's pretty
Mhm.
consistent. So like I need to watch what I tell my clients because I'm like, oh, don't worry about those. But like we get to a place where we can level out. And then
Yeah.
it went up, the last end part is when it went up again from 160 to 164.6 in 3 days. And
Mm.
so, like, the idea of like now I can buffer myself and just knowing that, like, the beginning, essentially the beginning end of my cycle is where I have
Yeah.
the most fluctuation. But ironically, like you said, like the data is about the information it's giving you. I will probably not weigh myself. Actually, no, I know I won't weigh myself daily
Uh-huh.
because of the emotional
Yeah.
whirlwind it was bringing me. And
Mhm.
even though I'm a coach and I can look at the data now, it's like I've pulled myself away and I'm looking at it and it's very objective. But
Mhm.
that day to day anticipation of what it was going to be,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
though I'm not having a goal in mind at all, was unreal. And
Yeah.
now asking people to do that with a goal in mind, like to help track their success,
Right.
it's emotionally too much. Like for
Yeah.
me, it'd be emotionally too much. So
Yeah.
to tell you, no. But what I probably will do more, because you're gonna laugh, is track my poop again.
I don't
I
doubt that. I do not
started
doubt that.
well, I started the poop journal
Uh-huh.
along with my weight because I was noticing
Oh, I
like that was a
noticed.
key.
Yep.
I know.
Yep.
Okay.
I gotcha.
Because I noticed like, oh my gosh, my digestive system slows down
Yeah.
certain times of the
Yep.
month. And I'm curious too of like how my stress levels, my sleep levels. And so like
Mhm.
again, that one has less emotional of like, oh, I'm pooping 4 times a day versus I pooped
Mhm.
twice that day. But that gave me more information to
Yeah.
me on how I'm feeling and helping
Right.
me be in tune with how I'm
Yeah.
feeling
Right.
versus just getting on the scale and seeing that weight.
Right. So more information and personal information is serving you. And I mean,
Tailored and yeah,
yeah.
tailored information. So like for me, when I think of how this is going to change my practice of talking to clients, my
Mhm.
first question is going to be, what tailored information do you want to know more about yourself?
Mhm.
Because if they feel bloated and yucky and this, I might be like, okay, we're going to track your poop. And I like, usually I joke about tracking the poop and I tell
Yeah.
people like track your
Yeah.
poop. No, I'm going to be legit. Like, I need to know your poop now. Like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to be more on like when in the morning, how much do you feel like you did? Like,
Yeah.
did you feel empty? Did you not feel empty? Like, because that
Maybe it's
is more
more
tailored
valuable.
information.
Yeah, more
Yes.
valuable
Yeah.
information
Yeah.
than just what that number is because that alone can make the weight fluctuate so much.
Oh my gosh, I did one day and it was like I gained 3 pounds in a day because I didn't poop for one day.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, like now you can hear this information and people might be like, oh, I want to use this the wrong way. And I want to just like take laxatives and lose 5 pounds. Well,
Please don't.
there's the issue. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
don't do that. But there's the issue of like, we are trying to hack the system, right?
Yeah.
To get the result when in reality, like that's not the like
Yeah.
who like
Yeah.
honestly, people will look at me. It's like I fluctuate 5 pounds every 30 days, yet I'm the same size pants. yet I'm the same size clothes. So when clients come to me and say, oh, I just want to shed that last 5 pounds,
Mhm.
I'm always like, no, pick another goal.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
that could be skin, that could be bloat, that could be poop, that could be,
yeah.
you know, like your journey is a perfect
Yeah,
example.
I was gonna say for me, so I know I've talked about this before, but I had a number in mind that I wanted to see on the scale postpartum. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like super stressed about how many months it was gonna take, but I knew I wanted to get there. And I mean, unhealthy ways to lose weight, just sleep deprivation and literally
Just to
chasing
see
after
that
these
number on the
kids.
scale.
Like
Yeah.
I wasn't eating enough, so that helped, probably get me there unhealthily, but um I saw the number on the scale and it was so unsatisfying when I saw it because I did not feel good. My body did not feel good. Again, probably because I wasn't fueling it properly and I wasn't sleeping enough and
Right.
whatever, but it was also very physical for me. And I, like, sure, okay, the number on the scale was there and maybe I could get into the jeans, but they just didn't feel right. And then it was the complete transformation of relearning my body and how to get back into better patterns and better habits, physically moving my body that then helped me feel better. Like I lost inches from my waistline at the exact same weight on the scale. Like when
Yeah.
we were working
Mm-hmm.
together within 2 months, I lost inches. The
Mm-hmm.
weight stayed exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so the confidence, I felt so much better. I felt stronger and more confident with
Mm-hmm.
myself. And that's really what I needed, even though I had hit the scale. So again, for me, it was like, okay, that was one data point, but to your point, I needed more tailored data points. I needed that extra information to kind of round out my story
Yeah.
instead of the story that I
Absolutely.
thought someone else was feeding to me. I mean, seeing someone else's
Yes.
transformation, hearing my transformation story should not be indicative of what your transformation story, like you, Sandy, you, anyone listening, anyone else's transformation story. Like you see these pictures on Instagram of these before and afters. It's like, okay, so maybe that one picture is super empowering to you and you get this boost of confidence that it is possible. Or maybe it's just the most defeating, depressing picture you've ever seen. It just makes you feel awful. Like you need
Yeah. And
to
like,
like
yeah, you have to figure out what
the
works for you.
content.
And like,
What is
yep,
what's
it's
gonna
all about
fuel
the
you? What's gonna
context.
empower? Yeah.
Yes. I'm not here saying like throw the scale away and never look at it again, because I have clients that we've used the scale very like they did track their weight daily.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have this emotional tie.
Right.
It's the men, really, I'll be honest with you, the men I train.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's men that I train that have more than 50, 75 pounds to lose. And so it's interesting because I have them track their weight. We track it every 2 weeks daily if they want to. A lot of them are like no thanks. And what's interesting is like we see that they fluctuate the same too. So like men
Mm-hmm.
also will go up and down, not because they don't have a cycle, but because that's how our bodies are just physiologically trying to get back to homeostasis.
Right.
And so like what I'm trying to say is like you can use the scale if it's serving you. Yet at some points, you're going to get to a point where it's not going to serve you anymore. So
Right.
I have
Right.
clients that like lose that 50, 75 plus pounds of weight. And then they get to this place and they're like, well, how am I supposed to use this scale now? And I'm like,
Right.
exactly. We got to
Right.
pivot. We got to
Yeah.
shift. What's your goal now?
Right.
And what data point is going to help you get to that goal? Because,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, the scale can only give you so much. And specifically when I talk about those, because a lot of my clients, female clients, come to like, oh, I have that 5-10 pounds like you, of
Right.
like, oh, I
Yeah.
hit the scale, but something. And I'm like, yeah, the scale's not going to help you then. Like you saw
Mm-hmm.
me of like, I fluctuate 5
5
pounds,
yeah,
some
5
people
pounds is
even 10 pounds,
yeah.
depending on
Yeah.
where they are in their cycle. And this has nothing to do with like add in alcohol, add in sodium. Like
Right.
maybe I went to a wedding and I celebrate. Maybe I'm sleep deprived
Uh-huh.
because my kids woke up, whatever. Like All of these things play a part.
Right.
And knowing when to use a way to use data and then when to pull back
Mhm.
and shift and pivot is
Yeah.
really the key thing here. So
Yeah.
like yours was inches, right? I'm going to use my circumference measurement, or I'm going to use,
Mhm.
like, I'll talk about the jeans. For me, I I had to give away all my jeans after, like, I fit into them, but exactly what you said, like it
Yeah.
just didn't fit right. My
Yeah.
hips did not,
Yeah.
like, it just didn't feel the same. And so like if
Mhm.
you're that person that has those jeans postpartum and you're like, I want, and you put them on, like, oh, it just doesn't fit the same,
Yeah.
it could very well be have nothing to do with you needing to lose more weight and the fact that your
Absolutely.
hips are slightly wider
Mhm.
because you pushed a baby out, you carried a baby in
Mhm.
there, and that those relaxin hormones, ligaments are not where they were before. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean it's not stable, doesn't mean you're not strong, it's just
Right.
different. And so
Mhm.
data is, like, I hate to admit it, but like culturally, we have effed it up. We have effed it up.
Mhm.
Like this was one thing I brought up during my talks was labels and why labels exist. And they exist purely for the fact that in research, we had to categorize things and lump things together. So
Mhm.
if one of your data points or mechanisms is putting a label that's not serving you,
Right.
you got to do it differently. And like
Yeah.
one good
Yeah.
example that I use, and like this is where it can get effed up, and you brought this up, was pictures, before and
Yeah.
after pictures.
Mhm.
I'm not a huge fan of before and after pictures,
Right.
only because it gives you just those two. But
Yep.
I am a fan of using pictures as a way to challenge you and get you comfortably uncomfortable with
Mhm.
understanding why you have ties to certain things.
Yeah.
Because I
Absolutely.
have clients that have said, you're not allowed to weigh yourself anymore. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? I won't know, like, how I'm supposed to feel. I'm like, okay, well, you're gonna have to take a picture of yourself. I can't do that. You know, that's the
Mhm.
reaction. Like, I can't do that. Like, I just don't feel. I just, mm-mm. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do this data part of like, you got to
Yeah.
take a picture and you got to look at it,
Yeah.
or stand in the mirror. Don't take a picture and just look at yourself.
Because I do think, I mean, when I always do that with clients, and at the end, the after, we're really looking for the posture, and I mean, you can feel the confidence just oozing from their pores from that after picture. And it's so helpful to see the before for them. I always get nervous right before we do it. Like,
Oh,
what if I
right.
didn't
Of
what if it
course.
didn't
As a
work this
coach,
time?
you're like,
Yeah. What if I messed up this time? But it's always there, and you can feel their presence differently. And that's always what I love to see. Who cares about the weight, but how are they feeling? How are we able
yes.
to
You bring up an amazing thing of like, it's not about the before and after of seeing if you've lost weight. It's the
Mhm.
before and after of who you've become and getting to
Yeah.
know yourself
Yeah.
more
Yeah. And what
and
that picture mean to you. Yeah.
loving yourself throughout the entire journey. And that's the
Mhm.
hardest part, because a lot
Yeah.
of us are using data as a way to chase loving ourselves.
Yeah.
And you're not going to love yourselves two size smaller. You're not going to love yourself, you know, ripped and shredded, because the truth of the matter is depending on the season in life that you are, your body is going to change and fluctuate. And like, that's something I'm having to deal
Mhm.
with right now. And like,
Yeah.
saying what data serves me today in
Yeah.
this season of life, that's the one you got to
Mhm.
choose. And
Yeah.
it takes time to figure that out.
Mhm. So, I think that's a really good segue into our challenge for the week,
Mm-hmm.
to hashtag CU data, and to find data that serves you, right?
And
Serves your why,
yes,
serves your purpose.
and maybe you've been holding on to the scale or some sort of data that isn't serving you. And so
Yeah.
your challenge can be to let that go
Yep.
and
Put it
find a
away.
different one, or give yourself
Mhm.
a break and do
Yeah.
something different. And just a shout out to all the ones, I love getting the text messages, and Alex's too, of
Yeah.
those that aren't on social media or that they don't want to post, but they are following along and using this challenge as a way to help them get comfortably uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Keep it up,
Yes.
okay?
Please. It's we're talking to you. We are talking to one person that needs to hear this today, that wants to make a change, that can integrate something wonderful, healthy, and positive into their life. So take it, hold it, think about it. You do not need to share it, but if you want to share it with us personally, of course, we would always love to hear from you. And
And
we're
if you've got
grateful
a
for
poop
you.
journal, you know I want to see it. So I'm here. I'm here for the poop. Thank you for showing up today. Getting awkward is always more fun with friends. Give us a review, tag us, and share us so we can continue to grow together.
Use hashtag CUPod, letter C, letter U, or tag us. You can find Sandy on Instagram at Sweat and Shine On, and Alex at aj.afterbabyfit on Instagram and After Baby Fit on Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you next time.